Something has been closed in your hand for a long time. You may not have noticed because the closing became the shape of the hand itself. A person you cannot stop thinking about. An outcome you cannot stop measuring yourself against. A version of the future you keep trying to pull into the present with everything you have. This is a video for anyone who has been trying so hard to keep it. Whatever it is, whoever it is, that keeping has started to feel like the only thing that still works. If that is where you are tonight, you have arrived in the right place. Over the next 3 hours, you will be asked only to notice the holding. What it costs, what it hides, what it is actually made of when you look. 2,500 years ago, a man sat under a tree and watched his own mind grip at the world. He watched quietly, with a tenderness the rest of us have never been taught, until the gripping loosened from the inside. The teachings that come from that tree, the ones you will hear tonight, are about that exact loosening. The thing you are holding is probably not as heavy as the holding. So if you can, lie back or settle in where you are and let the lights around you go a little softer. I am glad you are here, wherever in the world you are listening from tonight. Somewhere in this night, a hand is still closed around a phone. Maybe yours, maybe not yet. The conversation has been checked 4 times already. The last message received hours ago is being reread for shape rather than meaning, as though it has another face hiding in it that will reveal itself on the 5th pass. It does not. It never has. The screen dims, the thumb moves, the screen brightens again. Nothing has arrived. Somewhere else, in this same night, a hand is closed around something else entirely. A chest that tightens every morning at about 5 minutes before the alarm, gripping at the hours ahead before they have even begun. Fingers curled around a memory from 12 years ago, as though a memory were a thing that could be held and turned over in the palm. A jaw clenched around a sentence that never got said to someone who is no longer listening. These are hands too. They belong to the same story. This is one version of the hand we were talking about. There are others. The hand that replays a conversation that ended years ago, looking for the one thing we could have said that would have changed its ending. The hand that carries an old identity that no longer fits, but that we cannot seem to put down because it is the only one we were ever taught to wear. The hand that grips a version of the future, the right job, the right person, the right shape of a life, and will not let the present touch it, in case reality ruins the image. What these hands share is a particular kind of tiredness. Not the body's tiredness, though sometimes it lives there too. A deeper tiredness, the kind that comes from doing a thing for so long that it has stopped feeling like doing. A kind of work so continuous it has become invisible to the one who is working. The tiredness of someone who cannot tell you why they are tired, because the naming of it requires a little distance, and they have not had distance in a very long time. If you asked them what they were doing, they would say nothing, resting, waiting, trying to fall asleep. But the hand would still be closed, even in the dark. If you are listening to this and you know the feeling, you are not broken. You are holding something. The Buddha was uncommonly gentle about this, and also uncommonly exact. 2,500 years ago, in a deer park in a country that no longer exists by that name, he gave a teaching that has been passed down so many times, it can sound almost decorative when we hear it. 4 noble truths. 4 observations about what is happening inside a human life. The first was a naming. Life, as most of us are living, it contains a texture that pinches. Even its pleasures are often rimmed with anxiety about their ending. Even its quiet is sometimes a waiting room for the next thing. He called this dukkha, a word that gets translated as suffering, but carries a wider meaning. The off-centeredness, the not quite rightness, the ache that moves beneath most lives like an underground stream. The second truth is the one that changes the whole picture. The second truth says the stream has a source. The ache is not random, and it is not because the world is broken, and it is not because something is wrong with you. The ache has a specific location in the mind, and the location is not the event that happened. It is the grip the mind is placing on the event. That is the teaching in its plainest form. Suffering arises from craving, from the reaching at what is. Let that sit for a moment. Because the way we usually tell the story of our own suffering is a different story. Usually, the story is this: something happened and it caused the pain. The person left and the leaving caused the ache. The opportunity passed and the passing caused the regret. The body changed and the change caused the grief. In this story, the pain is a straight line from the event to the heart. The Buddha offered a more careful look. He said, "Look again. There is a step in between that you may be missing. Between the event and the suffering, there is the hand. And the hand is not always as still as you think. Something happened. The mind reached. The reaching tightened into a grip. The grip held. And the weight we are carrying, the weight we have been calling the weight of the event, is mostly the weight of the grip. This is not a blaming. This is a relief, if you stay with it long enough to feel it. Because if the weight were really the event, you would have no way to change it. The event is over. It has already happened, or it is happening, or it is coming, and in none of those cases is the event in the room with you right now. What is in the room right now is the grip. And the grip is something you are doing. This is a strange sentence to sit with. Most of us have never thought of suffering as something we are doing. We have thought of it as weather, or as a season, or as an illness that arrived uninvited. Framed that way, there is nothing to be done but wait for it to pass. The teaching is not saying the events of our lives are under our control. They often are not. It is saying something more specific. The part of the suffering made of the grip, the part we are still manufacturing, breath by breath, thought by thought, is available to be noticed. And what can be noticed can begin, slowly, to change shape. The Dhammapada says something in its 16th chapter that I want to say slowly, because the fast version has been said too many times. From affection arises sorrow. From affection arises fear. For one freed from affection, there is no sorrow and there is no fear. The word translated here as affection is piya, a term from the original language of the teaching that does not mean love and does not mean warmth. It means a grasping tenderness, the particular kind of liking that clings, that makes the mind squeeze tighter when the liked thing is threatened. The teaching is not saying that caring is the problem. It is saying that the squeeze is the problem, and most of us have mistaken the squeeze for the caring. The caring was always there. The caring is something quieter, steadier, more continuous. The squeeze is what happens when caring meets fear. The mind notices the beloved person, or the beloved job, or the beloved version of our own future, and then beside the caring it places a second thing, a small, constant pressure that says, if this goes, I will not survive it. The pressure is the piya. The pressure is what tires the hand. And one of the unexpected things about this teaching is that when the pressure lessens, the caring does not lessen with it. The caring is freed. Notice what is happening in the body as you listen to this. Notice, without judgment, whether there is a small protest somewhere, a part of you that does not want this to be true, that would prefer the simpler story where the event caused everything and no one can be asked to loosen anything. That protest is the grip defending itself. That is how exact the teaching is. You can watch the grip, protect the grip, right now, in the body, in real time. This is why the chapter we are in is called what it is called. Before you can loosen, you have to feel the fist. It is not enough to understand it from a distance. It is not enough to concede that intellectually it makes sense. You have to feel it. The way the muscles of the hand ache by the end of a long day of closing around something. The way the small ring of tension behind the eyes gathers when a thought will not let itself be put down. The way the breath becomes shallow around the place where the grip lives. For a moment, do not try to change anything. Do not try to loosen. Do not try to let anything go. Just locate the fist. Wherever it is. In the chest, perhaps. In the stomach. In the jaw that has been clenched since the morning commute. In the thought that keeps returning, half formed, the way a dog returns to a bone it has already finished. Wherever you find it, do not rush to label it. Do not call it stress or anxiety or longing or heartbreak. Those words will come later, if you want them. For now, just feel the physical shape of it. Where does it sit in the body? Is it high or low? Is it sharp or dull? Is it something you are bracing against, or something you are reaching toward? Some of the deepest griefs we carry live under the ribs, a little to the left. Some of the most exhausting longings live in the palms of the hands themselves. Some of the heaviest holdings live behind the eyes, which is why we sometimes cry at the end of a long day for reasons we cannot fully explain. You are allowed to find it and do nothing about it. This section is only the finding. That is enough for now. Because one of the strange, kind truths about this kind of work is that the fist often begins to soften the moment it is simply seen. Not always, not completely, but a little. The grip has been carrying you for a long time without being looked at, and the looking is the first thing that changes the arrangement. If something small has already begun to soften in you while listening to this, that is not imagination. That is the teaching, working the way it has worked for 2,500 years. The first truth was the naming. The second truth was the locating. And the locating, by itself, begins the loosening. The hardest part of what is being asked is not the opening of the hand. The hardest part is something quieter than that. It is the story the mind keeps telling about why the hand is still closed, why it must remain closed, why loosening is dangerous, why, if this grip were released, something important would fall and shatter on the floor. That story is not the truth, but it sounds like the truth in the voice of the one who is hurting. And that is the next thing we look at together. Picture the moment. It is a Tuesday or a Thursday. Evening. You are standing in the kitchen with the kettle cooling on the counter, or walking home from the train with your earphones in, or lying in bed with the lamp still on because sleep has not arrived yet. And without meaning to, you start going over it again. The conversation from 2 weeks ago. The way she said that one thing. The pause before he replied, the email that was slightly too short, the gift that was slightly too generic, the coincidence you cannot stop thinking about, the song on the radio the morning everything changed, the text that arrived at the exact second you were thinking of them, the stranger at the bus stop who said something that felt, for a moment, like an answer written just for you. You are searching. Whatever word you put on it, you know the feel of it. You are looking for the piece that makes the whole thing make sense. Because if there is a reason for what is happening to you, then at least there is a shape. And a shape is easier to live inside than no shape at all. In the middle of the looking, a quiet voice arrives. Maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe it was always going to be this way. Maybe the world is trying to tell me something, and if I could only work out what, I would know what to do next. Maybe there is a later version of my life where all of this makes sense, and my job tonight is only to work out the code. Stay inside that moment with me for a second. Notice what the voice is doing to your shoulders. Notice how the air around you has quietly thickened while you were listening to it. Notice the small, strained muscle at the back of your jaw that has been holding itself like that for hours. Notice how your attention keeps drifting back toward the phone on the counter, the clock above the sink, the window that shows nothing but your own reflection at this hour of the night. Notice how your breath has been staying small, held just below the collarbone, as though a fuller breath might disturb whatever you are trying to solve. The voice has been your quiet companion for longer than you remember. It has been running underneath your evenings like a second radio nobody ever turned off. It has been tiring you out in a way that no amount of sleep has been repairing. Imagine there is another way of looking at the same evening. A way that lets the ache be what it already is, without adding a second story on top of it. Your shoulders could drop. Your jaw could soften. The air around you could thin again. The event would still be the event. The scanning could stop. There is a walk you have taken, or maybe only imagined, where the rain begins while you are still a block from home. The drops start small. The pavement darkens. Your coat begins to smell faintly of wet wool. The rain fell because the clouds were holding too much water. The clouds were holding too much water because the ocean warmed up somewhere far away. The ocean warmed up because the sun was doing what the sun does. The sun was there because of a long row of other conditions, each leaning into the next, stretching back further than anyone can follow. Walking through that rain, you pull your hood up. You think about dinner. You let the rain be rain. The rain is what happened after the things that make rain happen. That is all. There is a long name for this in an old language. Paticcasamuppada. In plain English, things happen after the things that make them happen have happened. The ache in your chest tonight is rain. Take the silence in your hand again. The message you were hoping for did not arrive. Stay with that. Feel the small, familiar pull in the chest that rises when you say it to yourself. The old voice wants to explain the silence. It has 100 explanations ready. Something is being withheld. A lesson is being delivered. This chapter of your life needed to close for reasons that will be revealed later. You are being prepared for someone else. You were not quite ready when the good thing was first given to you. You were given a test, and you have been failing it without knowing the rules. These explanations have been quiet companions for you. They have been the shape you laid across the silence so that the silence could be bearable. Now try a quieter account of the same silence. The silence is what happens when the conditions for speech are absent on the other end. That is all. The person did not speak because, inside their own weather, inside their own conditions, the speaking did not arise. They were tired when they meant to write back. Their day ran longer than expected. Something smaller and more private rose in them that afternoon, and your message sat on the edge of their attention, a small square of light they would come back to, and then did not. There is no room above them where a decision was being made about your deserving. There is no ledger with the exact amount of your waiting written down. There is only weather on both sides of the silence. Sit with that for a moment. Watch what happens in your body. For some, the chest tightens. A part of you was hoping there was a ledger. The ledger gave you a role. It meant you were being watched And being watched is a lonely company that still felt like company. If you feel that tightness tonight, let it sit. You do not need to argue with it. For most of us, the body loosens. The shoulders drop a small amount. The jaw softens. A breath that had been held for the length of a week finds its way out. Something strange happens in the chest, a particular warmth that comes from discovering that you are smaller than the drama you thought you were living inside. There is one more thing about this way of looking at your evening that I want to give you tonight. It is where your own hands come into the story. Picture yourself in the kitchen again. The kettle has just boiled. The sound of it has been filling the room, and now, in the quiet that follows the click of the switch, your own thoughts become audible again. A thought arrives. The thought is about a person you have not heard from in months, someone you have not been dwelling on all day, just a passing arrival, like a bird crossing the window. A feeling arrives with the thought. A small ache under the breastbone. The ache is familiar. You have met it before. You did not choose the thought. You did not choose the feeling. Both arrived on their own. Between the ache and what happens next, there is a hairline pause. Half a second, maybe less. In that pause, you are about to reach. You are about to pick up the phone. You are about to open the conversation app. You are about to begin composing a reply to a message that has not yet been sent by anyone. That hairline pause, when you catch it, is the first of the quiet gates inside your own evening. Seeing it is the whole instruction. The seeing itself changes what happens next. Now imagine the reaching already happened. You picked up the phone. You saw that nothing had arrived. The wanting is real now. You do want to hear from them. There is a second pause here, a little further along. It sits between the wanting and what you are about to do with it. The wanting could be a passing wind through your evening. Or the wanting could become a residence, a place where you now live, a small house you are building out of. Will they? Won't they? What did it mean? That second pause is the other gate. You can notice it, sometimes, before you carry your furniture across the threshold. These gates are quiet. They show themselves to the kind of attention that is sitting with its own experience kindly for long enough to catch the smaller movements. That is the attention you were practicing in the last section when you located the fist. The fist you found is already next to the first gate. That is enough for tonight. Keep looking. So what changes when the voice that reads messages into the silence goes quiet? The drama shrinks. No one is watching. No one is testing. No one is withholding what you were meant to have for the sake of a hidden lesson. The room becomes a room. The evening becomes an evening. The tea in your cup becomes tea. The lamp in the corner becomes a lamp. The silence becomes silence, which turns out to be less full of blades than you had thought it was. At the same time that the drama shrinks, something else grows larger. your own range of motion. If nothing is being done to you, then your attention, your kindness, the small things you choose tonight, all of them matter. They matter because they are becoming the conditions for whatever comes tomorrow. The quality of the mind you have right now, as you listen, is going to be in the room with you when you wake up. That is how conditions work. Nothing mystical in it. You might feel something pushing back inside the chest as this is said. A part of you that does not want to give up the meaningful ache. A part that would rather have a designed pain than a plain one. Let it stay. All you are being asked to do is notice that what it is defending is a ceiling you once mistook for the sky. What is left, when the ceiling is gone, is a kind of accurate grief. Grief the size of the thing that was lost. Just the shape of the loss itself, which the heart is actually built to carry. The person you loved was a person. The job you hoped for was a job. The future you had already furnished in your mind was a picture of a future. Each of these has a recognizable weight. The heart knows how to hold a weight of that size. You can feel your heart recognize the difference if you give it a second. The smaller grief is heavier at first because it is closer to the skin. The tears may come sooner. The throat may thicken. Then, very slowly, it becomes bearable in a way the designed grief never quite was. One last thing before we walk on together. Test this tonight, inside your own week. The next time an ache arrives in your chest, and you feel the old voice getting ready to read a meaning into it, see if you can catch the hairline pause. The first gate will flicker into view for a moment. You will have met half of this teaching inside your own life. Now come back to the thing in your hand. The person, the outcome, the version of the future you have been carrying. Something about it looks different tonight. Look at it closely. It has a quality you could not see before. Something in it has been slipping the whole time, like a stream moving under a still-looking surface. Your hand has only been tightening around its going. That is where we sit next, at the edge of a stream. So here we are, at the edge of a stream at night. The grass under you is cool and a little damp, and the ground slopes gently toward the water, so your knees rest a little lower than your hips. The stream is narrow, maybe as wide as your arm is long, and the moon, half full tonight, is sitting in a gap between the trees. Its light is on the water. The air smells faintly of wet earth and something sweeter, maybe a flower blooming somewhere behind you. The temperature on your skin is cool without being cold. The night has that particular quietness that makes small sounds very clear. Listen for a moment. There is the sound of the current moving over stones, a soft, constant rush that is never quite the same from one breath to the next. Sometimes a leaf drops from the branch above and skims the surface before the water takes it. Sometimes an insect touches down and lifts off again. The surface looks still from where you sit, a silvery sheet under the moonlight, and the water underneath is always going somewhere. Everything here is moving. Let your hand rest on your knee. Feel the weight of it. Feel whatever it is you came here carrying, whatever has been in your chest for days or weeks or longer. A name, a conversation that did not go the way you wanted, a version of your life you were counting on, a person whose messages used to arrive in a certain rhythm and then stopped arriving in that rhythm. Or something smaller and harder to name, an old idea of how things were supposed to go, a future you had already started writing in your head, a self you were planning to be by now. You know the feeling of it, that quiet, clenched grip somewhere behind your breastbone, the one that says, "I cannot lose this." The one that says, "If this changes, I do not know who I am." Now, watch the stream. Imagine, for a moment, that you reach down and cup a little of the water in your palm. It is cold. You can feel the weight of it, the small pull of it wanting to slip between your fingers. You hold it there. Now look closely. The water in your palm, the water you are holding right now, is already a different water than it was a second ago. Some of it has seeped through the gaps in your fingers, already run down your wrist, already rejoined the stream below. What is in your palm now is new water, already on its way through. You cannot hold the stream. Nobody can. You can close your fingers tighter. You can cup your other hand under it. You can press your palms together. And still, every moment, what you are holding is leaving you. This is the feel of anicca, the Pali word the Buddha used over and over, meaning, very simply, that nothing stays. Nothing. Water, breath, the shape of a face, the sound of a voice, the warmth of a body lying next to yours. The mood you woke up in, this very moment you are sitting in right now. The Dhammapada says it plainly. All conditioned things are impermanent. When you see this with wisdom, something loosens. In your body, loosening shows up in small ways. The shoulders drop a millimeter. The jaw unclenches a tiny amount. The air moves more freely in the space between your ribs. Tonight, at the stream, the task is only to see. Let your eyes soften on the water. Think of the person whose loss you have been carrying. Think of them as they actually are, right now, somewhere, in a body that is older than it was yesterday, in a life that has kept moving without checking with you. They are carrying forward, right now, in the shape of who they are today, moving through a future you will never see. Their voice, if you could hear it today, would not sound exactly like it does in your memory. Their opinions have shifted in ways you do not know about. Their morning routines have changed. Their hands are slightly different. The person you are missing, in the exact form you are missing them, has already moved downstream. And so have you. Your body tonight is a different body than the one you had when the relationship began, or when the diagnosis came, or when the message arrived. The cells of your skin have replaced themselves. Your hair has grown. The chemistry of your blood has shifted through thousands of small changes you could not feel. The self that the loss happened to, in the exact form that it happened to, is also somewhere downstream. The stream does not mourn the water that has passed it. The water a mile downriver makes no attempt to be the water it was at the spring. It is doing what water does. It is being the next shape of itself. Your life is doing the same. The strange, tender truth is that there is no point in the whole stream where the water is standing still and waiting for you to catch up. The water is always the next water. You are always the next you. And the person you lost is always the next them, carrying forward in their own flow. Feel what this does in your chest. Here, tonight, at the stream, the thought that everything is moving might feel, oddly, like a small window opening. Because if what you are holding is already moving, then the fight you have been having, the one that has been tiring you for months or years, is a different fight than you thought. You have been tightening your hand around water that was already leaving. There is a story about a teacher named Ajahn Chah, a Thai forest monk, who held up his glass one evening and said something people have been repeating ever since. He said the glass was useful. He drank from it. He washed it. He kept his toothbrush in it. The light moved through it when the sun came into the room. And then he said, "For me, this glass is already broken." He was saying something very simple. The glass, like everything else in that room, is already part of a process. It is on its way somewhere. A crack is coming. A drop, a slip, a long-forgotten day when someone knocks it off the shelf. And knowing this, really knowing it, allowed him to love the glass while he had it. Try it with something small first. Your phone, the ceramic mug you drink from every morning, the book on your bedside table. Each of them, in its own time, is on its way to being lost. Feel for a moment what it would be like to pick up your mug tomorrow, knowing with your whole body that one day you will pick it up for the last time, knowing it in a clear and unhurried way. Now try it with something bigger. The hand of someone you love, the sound of their laugh in the kitchen, the specific warmth of their body next to yours on a cold night. These, too, are already part of a process. Something in the quality of your attention changes. It softens, it stays present, and the grip underneath it eases. The monks in that Thai forest were naming what is already, quietly, the case. That every beautiful thing you are afraid of losing is already on its way. That loving it tenderly, while it is here, is what a fully alive life looks like. Think of what you are carrying through the lens of this story. The job you have, it is on its way somewhere. The friendship that is strong today, it is on its way somewhere. The body you live in, it is on its way somewhere. This very evening, sitting by this stream in your mind, is on its way somewhere. And something strange happens when you let yourself see this clearly. You do not hold the glass less. You hold it with softer hands, Now, look down at your actual hand, the one resting on your knee. Notice what it is doing. If you are like most people sitting with a loss, it is probably, right now, a little tighter than it needs to be. A slight curl of the fingers, a slight pressing of the thumb into the palm. Quietly, a holding. Let it soften. Just a fraction. For now, simply notice that your hand, the one you have been holding your life with, has been closing around a current. This is the beginning of what the Buddha called wise response. You start by feeling, with your actual body, the difference between gripping the stream and being the banks of the stream. The banks hold their shape. The water moves through. Something in you can be like that too. There is a place, somewhere a little behind your breastbone, that is quieter than the grip. You can find it if you listen for it. It is steadier. It is the part of you that has watched every loss come and go across your whole life and is still here, listening to this, breathing. That part of you is the bank of the stream. The grip is one movement you make, again and again, inside a much larger presence. It is a muscle that learned, somewhere along the way, that clamping down was the only way to keep things safe. It has worked hard for you. It is tired. The larger presence has been here the whole time. While you were crying in the bathroom, while you were staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, while you were walking through the supermarket with a basket in your hand, pretending everything was fine. Something in you was watching all of it, steady, present, breathing along with you. That watcher has never needed to grip anything. Try something for me right now. Breathe in. Let the breath come all the way down into the low part of your belly, the place just above the hip bones. Now breathe out. Let the breath go completely without chasing it. Notice what it feels like to let the breath leave. Notice that it comes back anyway. This is what the banks feel like from the inside. The breath moves through you. You stay. You are here, exactly yourself, on either side of each breath. Sit with this for a moment. The water is moving. Your hand is softening. The stream is doing what streams do, and your body is learning, very slowly, that it does not have to do the stream's work. And yet, something is still clenched. Look, very gently, at your hand again, at the shape your fingers have been making the whole time you have been listening. In the next stretch of our sitting, we move our attention from the water to the hand itself. Because there is something the old forest monks noticed, watching monkeys in the trees, about what happens when a living creature refuses to uncurl its fingers, even when uncurling them would set it free. For now, stay here. Stay at the stream. Let one more breath go in and out, while the water keeps doing what it has always done, moving through everything you thought you were holding. stay with your hand for a moment, the one still resting on your knee. The fingers are probably curled in the shape they have been making the whole time you have been sitting here. Even while we walked through the teaching about the water, even while the stream kept moving past you, the hand has been holding something. There is a teaching that forest monks in Thailand have been passing down for a very long time. It grew out of watching what actually happens in the forest around their monasteries, year after year. A hunter, long ago, figured out the easiest way to catch a monkey. He would take a coconut or a narrow-necked jar, and he would hollow it out. Inside, he would put a handful of rice or a small banana or something sweet. Then he would tie the coconut to a tree. The monkey would come. The monkey would smell the rice. The monkey would reach in with its slim hand, fingers straight, through the narrow opening. And then the monkey would close its fist around the rice. And then the monkey could not get its hand out. The opening in the coconut was just wide enough for a flat hand going in. It was too narrow for a fist. The monkey could have left at any moment. It only had to uncurl its fingers and let the rice fall. And still, the monkey would not. It would sit there with its fist around the handful of food, pulling and pulling, while the hunter walked up through the trees and caught it. Sometimes the hunter came slowly, whistling as he walked, and found the monkey still straining against the coconut at dusk, pulling with its whole shoulder, trying for an hour to free a hand that could have freed itself in one small motion. Too attached to the grain to think of opening. Sit with that image for a moment. A whole monkey, capable of leaping between branches, capable of disappearing into the canopy in an instant, held in place by nothing but its own grip on a fistful of rice. The strange thing about this story is how easy it is to laugh at the monkey. Of course, the monkey should just let go. Of course, the rice is not worth the cage. Anyone watching from outside can see that. Now bring your attention back to your own hand. What is in your fist? Take a moment, honestly. What has your heart been holding? What have you been refusing to set down for weeks or months or longer? A version of a relationship that is not coming back. An apology you feel you are owed. A career path you were planning out. An image of yourself as someone who does not fail. A story about what your life was supposed to look like by now. A person who is gone. A younger self who believed things you no longer believe. You already know what yours is. Whatever your hand has been closed around, it has been the shape of something. A loss, a regret, a refusal, a version of events. And like the monkey, the hand is the only thing keeping you still. The coconut is not holding you. The tree is not holding you. The hunter is not even here yet. The whole cage is in your hand. The Buddha had a word for this, a word that shows up all over his teachings. Upadana. It means clinging, holding on tight, the grip of taking something to be mine and mine only. He said that clinging is what turns the ordinary movement of wanting something into the heavy feeling of being trapped by it. Wanting, on its own, is light. Wanting passes. Clinging is the hand closing around what you wanted and then refusing to open. You know this feeling in your body. The tight chest at 3 a.m. when you are running a conversation for the 100th time. The jaw clenched through a day of work. The shoulders up around your ears while you wait for a message that is not coming. The clench in the gut when someone says the name of the person you were trying not to think about. These are all the same hand. One fist in many different places. You carry it into the kitchen in the morning. You carry it to work. You carry it into conversations that have nothing to do with the thing you are holding. The fist does not rest when you rest. It follows you into sleep. Sometimes you wake at 4 a.m. and notice your hand is already tight, even before your eyes have opened. And you know the way this grip spreads. It starts as a closed hand around one thing, and before long it has colored the rest of your day. You cannot enjoy dinner as much. You snap at the person making tea in the kitchen. A walk in the park feels dulled. This is the muscle of upadana extending its reach, holding on to the original thing while quietly graying out everything else, so that the fist remains the center of your life. What the forest monks were pointing at, with the monkey story, is something very small and physical. Letting go happens inside your closed hand. A tiny movement of the fingers, one breath of softening. Try it now, in a gentle way. Think of the thing you have been holding, the one that came to mind a moment ago, the version of the past, the person who is gone, the future you were counting on. Picture it as something sitting in your palm. Now imagine, just for a breath, your fingers beginning to open. Only a fraction, a millimeter. Notice what happens. Somewhere in your chest, something flinches. A voice comes in quickly. If I let this go, I lose it forever. If I set this down, it is the same as saying it did not matter. If I open my hand, there will be nothing left of me. Those voices are the grip talking. They are the muscle of upadana, explaining why the hand has to stay closed. Listen to them, and then look back at the hand. Is the hand actually being asked to destroy anything? Feel the answer for yourself. The hand is only being asked to open a fraction. The rice is still in the palm. The memory is still there. The love is still there. The ache is still there. The hand has simply stopped clenching. Something in the chest can loosen now. Here is something else the forest monks were careful about. The rice in the story is simply rice. Monkeys eat rice all the time. They find it in fallen coconuts, in monastery gardens, in offerings left by villagers. In every case except this one, the rice nourishes them and they move on. The cage only comes into being when the hand closes and refuses to open. This is a tender distinction and a crucial one. The cage is always about the hand. The particular muscle that clamps down, that holds the rice as if the hand will have nothing if it opens, is where the trap lives. Your life is full of rice. People you love, work you care about, moods that roll through you, plans you make for the coming year, memories of people who are gone. Each of these is part of what it means to be a living, tasting, feeling person. The trouble shows up only when the hand clamps down and refuses to soften, even when the rice is ready to be released. When the grief becomes a relationship you would rather keep than put down. When the resentment becomes more familiar than the person it was aimed at. When the version of yourself you were defending becomes more important than the actual breath in your chest. Imagine your hand again, the one you have been looking at. This time, follow the sensation closely. Start at the base of the thumb. That is where most of the clench hides. There is a small muscle just inside the thumb, the one that tightens every time you get ready to hold something, and for many of us, it has been tight for a very long time. Let it soften. Now, move to the fingers themselves. Fingertips first. Let them relax against each other. Then the middle knuckles. Then the palm itself, which is often the last place to let go. If you are sitting somewhere with your hand resting, feel the shape change. The fingers drift apart, a fraction. The palm opens upward, very slightly. The thumb falls away from the index finger. The wrist rests a little lower against the leg. The forearm softens into whatever is beneath it. The breath, which had been shallow for the last hour without your noticing, moves a fraction deeper into your ribs. Something in the chest answers this movement. You may feel it as a small ache, which is the grip releasing. You may feel it as a warm loosening in your shoulders. You may feel it as a wave of sadness that moves through and then moves on. All of these are fine. All of these are what happens when the fist finishes its long clamp. Picture the thing you are holding one more time. Now see the hand, gentler, more open, still cupping it. The love is still there. The care is still there. The memory is still there. The grip has simply stopped punishing the hand itself for being a hand that holds. The monkey did not know it was free. That was the whole quiet tragedy of the story. The cage was built into its hand, and the hand would not listen to anything the world was trying to tell it. You know something the monkey never knew. The monkey, sitting in the dark with its fist closed around the rice, had no idea there was anything other than this clenched moment. The hunger and the grip felt like the whole truth of its life. Something in you has seen further than that. You know that you are holding. You can feel the ache of the grip right now. You can sense the tightness in your fingers, in your chest, in your jaw. That single act of noticing, right here, tonight, as you sit by this imagined stream, is the first time the fingers begin to believe they have a choice. For now, let your hand rest, opened a little, on your knee. Do not force it all the way. A tiny softening is enough for tonight. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel the air moving past the fingers that are no longer clenching as hard as they were 10 minutes ago. You are still here. The thing you love is still here. The grief is still here. The life you are living is still here. All of it, still here, held more loosely now. When the monkey opens its hand, something unexpected tends to happen. The rice often ends up in its belly anyway. And the hand, having learned how to open, is what the monkey keeps for the rest of its life. In the next part of our sitting, we look at something the Buddha said about what happens in the moment of pain itself. Because even when the hand is softer, pain still arrives. A message comes that shouldn't have. An old grief rises in the chest. The body gets sick. And something in the mind begins, almost immediately, to do a second kind of damage on top of the pain that is already here. There are two arrows in the air every time. We will look at both of them. Imagine, for a moment, that an arrow has just arrived. Nothing literal, something more ordinary than a real arrow. A phone call that comes in the middle of dinner and changes everything in one sentence. A message from someone you loved, written in a tone you did not expect. A doctor's appointment where the air in the room shifts before they even open their mouth. A moment at work where a door closes and you realize your life is about to reroute itself without asking your permission. The arrow lands. You feel it. There is nowhere in the body it has not traveled in the first few seconds. A heat in the chest, a cold in the stomach, a ringing behind the eyes. The world narrows to the size of this one new piece of information, pressing in from every side. Your mouth goes dry. Your hands, whatever they were doing a moment ago, have stopped doing it. You are standing in the middle of your kitchen, or sitting in the driver's seat of your car, or looking at your phone in the quiet of your bed, and the whole world has condensed into one small, new, impossible feeling fact. Now watch what happens next. Within the first breath after the arrow lands, something else begins. A voice starts up. Why is this always happening to me? I should have seen this coming. If I had only said something different 3 months ago. This is the end of my life as I knew it. I am broken. They are broken. I will never recover from this. The first voice, then another, then another. In 30 seconds, the mind has written the first chapter of a much longer story about what the arrow means, about what kind of person it makes you, about how long the damage will last, about everything you should have done differently leading up to this moment. And while the mind is writing, the body is feeling all of it. Each sentence lands in your chest like another small hit. The chest gets heavier, the shoulders rise, the jaw locks, the breath goes shallow. By the time 2 minutes have passed, the original pain is buried under 30 or 40 additional thoughts, each of which has its own weight, its own temperature, its own sting. This is the reason a single 10-second event can reshape whole weeks of your life. The event ended long ago. The arrows, the 30 or 40 of them the mind kept firing after it, are what remain in your body and your sleep. There is a story about this in one of the Buddha's talks. A student came to him with a question that boils down to something very simple. Why does ordinary pain feel so much bigger than it should? Why does grief last so long? Why do we stay in it? The Buddha answered with a very small image. Imagine, he said, that someone is walking along a path and an arrow hits them. They feel the pain of the arrow. Then, almost immediately, a second arrow strikes them in the same spot. And this arrow, he said, comes from the person themselves. The first arrow is the pain the world has handed you. The death, the rejection, the sickness, the failure, the moment a phone call changes your life. The second arrow is what your mind throws at you on top of that. It is the commentary, the self-blame, the why me, the rehearsal of every version of the past that would have led to a different present. The story that says this pain means something permanent about who you are. The Buddha said the well-taught person feels one arrow where another feels two. The pain is still a pain. The world still hurts where it hurts. The difference is only that the second shot, the one the mind throws, stops landing. Think back to the last time something really landed on you. Maybe it was big. A death, a diagnosis, a relationship ending. Maybe it was small, a message left unread, a critical comment in a meeting, a friend who did not include you in something. In the first second, there was the thing itself, the actual news, the actual words. Then, in the second, third, fourth second, there was what your mind began to do with it. Watch yourself now, even as you are sitting here listening. When you think of that moment, is your body reliving only what actually happened? Or is it also reliving what your mind told you about what happened? If you look carefully, you will see that most of the pain you have carried from that event has been the second kind. The telling and retelling, the dissection, the midnight version, the morning version, the version you tell your closest friend. Each one is a new arrow, and each of them lands on an already sore place, which is why it hurts so much. You might already know what this has looked like in your life. A morning when you woke up, for no obvious reason, with the old grief already sitting on your chest before your eyes had opened. An afternoon at work where a small comment from a colleague sent you into a 3-hour spiral of self-questioning. A late-night scroll through old messages that left you more tired, more heavy, more undone than you had been before you picked up the phone. Every one of those was the second arrow, firing again at the same wound. The second arrow has a few familiar voices. You know all of them by name. There is the blame voice. This is my fault. If only I had been different, smarter, kinder, less distracted, this would not have happened. There is the injustice voice. This should not be happening to me. Other people do not have to deal with this. I have done enough for one lifetime. There is the identity voice. I am a person who gets left. I am a person who fails. I am a person who loses people. This confirms the worst thing I quietly believed about myself. There is the future voice. I will never be okay after this. I will be carrying this for the rest of my life. Each of them feels, in the moment, like a true observation about reality. Each of them feels like the helpful voice, the one that is trying to protect you by making sense of things. And every time one of them speaks, another small arrow fires into a place you were already wounded. What the Buddha was offering is not a way to feel no pain. It is a way to stop adding pain on top of pain. Here is the practice. When something lands, anything, small or large, see if you can do this one thing, just for the first few seconds. Feel where it has hit you in the body. That is all. Only the felt sensation of it. Only what is actually in the body. Only the heat or the cold or the tightness wherever it has landed. Maybe there is a heat in your chest. Stay with the heat. Maybe there is a cold tightness in your stomach. Stay with the cold tightness. Maybe there is a lump in your throat. Stay with the lump. These sensations, on their own, are actually bearable. They are small. They are physical. They come and they go. If you could stay inside the sensation without the mind adding commentary, you would find that even the worst of them begins to soften after a few minutes. The body knows how to metabolize a wave of pain. The body has been metabolizing waves of pain for as long as you have been alive. The mind is what turns a 10-minute wave into a 10-year story. So, just for tonight, as a small experiment, let the sensation be a sensation. When the voice starts up, saying, "This is always happening," or "I am broken," or "This will never end," see if you can hear it the way you might hear a radio playing in another room. A sound that is there. A sound you do not have to argue with. A sound you do not have to believe. This is not easy. Nothing in the training of the human mind prepares it to treat its own thoughts as background noise. The mind is used to being listened to, argued with, obeyed. When you begin to simply notice what it is saying, without taking the next step of believing every word, the mind often gets louder for a while. That is a normal part of this. The radio always turns up a little when you stop leaning in to listen. And then, eventually, if you keep staying with the sensation in the body instead, the radio gets quieter on its own. The mind that throws the second arrow is trying to help. It is a very young part of you that learned, a long time ago, that if it could just analyze the pain hard enough, it might be able to stop the pain from happening again. You can thank it for its work. Your hand, still resting on your knee, open a little more than it was a few minutes ago, can rest lightly across your chest for a moment while you do. A gesture to the young part of you that has been trying so hard to protect you by rehearsing every terrible scenario. You are safe enough now. Safer than that young part remembers. Safe enough, tonight, to feel a difficult feeling without being drafted back into the endless script of what it means. Place your hand where it is most comfortable. On your chest, on your belly, flat on your leg. Feel the warmth of your own hand on your own body. This is the oldest gesture of comfort there is. Your body recognizes it without being told. Something strange happens when you practice this, even a little, even once. You begin to notice that the first arrow, the real one, the pain the world actually delivers, is survivable. It hurts. It may hurt terribly. And still, at its core, it is a physical wave moving through a body that knows how to hold physical waves. You also begin to notice that the second arrow is the one that was making everything feel impossible. All those nights of lying awake, all those afternoons of rereading old messages, all those weeks of carrying a weight that seemed to be about the original event, but was actually about the story you had been telling yourself about the original event. This is what the Buddha meant when he said some suffering is optional. He was careful about the wording. He said the first arrow is part of being alive in a human body. Illness comes. Loss comes. Endings come. The second arrow is the one that is being flung inside your own mind, by your own hand, at a target that is already wounded. That one, with practice, can begin to miss. Sit with this for a breath. The invitation is small. Begin to notice the difference between what is actually happening and what the mind is adding on top. That is enough for tonight. In the next part of our sitting, we turn to a line from a Buddhist teacher named Shantideva, who wrote down, in the 8th century, what is probably the most practical sentence ever put to paper about worry. He noticed that almost everything we lie awake about falls into two simple categories. Things we can do something about, and things we cannot. And he wrote down very plainly what a sane response to each looks like. It is a line that has traveled down through 12 centuries because tired people keep finding it exactly when they need it. We will meet it next. There is a particular thought that has been following you around this month. It finds you on the commute. It finds you in the shower. It finds you in the pause between finishing one task and starting the next. It finds you in the middle of conversations that have nothing to do with it. You are standing at the kitchen counter, or scrolling through your phone, or putting on a jacket, and there it is again. By now, you recognize it. The mind has been picking it up for a while, turning it over, turning it again, like a coin it is trying to read in the dark. What if this? What if that? What would I do if? Maybe if I had only. What does it mean that they? How will I handle it when? Each pass through the loop takes about 45 seconds. Then it starts again. The mind does not seem to notice that it has been here. It does not seem to notice that nothing new has entered the loop for a very long time. You can feel what this does to you. A low hum of tension along your jaw, a tightness around the solar plexus, a small, strange heat behind your eyes, even though nothing in your actual life has changed today to cause it, except the thinking itself, which has slowly tired you out. There is a monk from North India who lived about 1200 years ago, in the 8th century. His name was Shantideva. He taught at a monastic university called Nalanda, one of the great learning places of the ancient world. One of the books he wrote has been kept alive through those 12 centuries by people who keep pulling it off the shelf in exactly this kind of moment. When a thought has been circling for weeks and they do not know how to set it down. In one chapter of that book, Shantideva takes a very close look at worry, at what it actually is, and what it actually does, and what it cannot do. And he writes down a single pair of sentences that has traveled through all those hundreds of years, because it lands, every time, in the same tender place. He says, in plain translation, something like this: if there is something you can do about the problem, why worry? And if there is nothing you can do about the problem, why worry? Let the line sit in the air for a moment. The first time you hear it, it can feel like a slightly clever move. A word game, a piece of cold logic that does not know what it is like to carry a heavy thought around for weeks. Stay with it, though. It is doing more than it looks like. Imagine that this week, in your loop, the mind keeps turning over a specific problem. An email that needs to be sent. A conversation you keep rehearsing before having. A difficult question about your work that has been sitting in the back of your head. A decision that has to be made by Friday. This is category 1. Something can be done about it. Notice what the worry is actually doing. It is running the problem through an internal simulator, over and over, pretending to solve it. Watch carefully. Nothing is being solved. The email is still not written. The conversation is still not had. The decision is still not made. Worry is what the mind does instead of action. when action is available. Somewhere along the line, the mind came to believe that thinking about the problem for long enough was the same as doing something about it. And so it rehearses and rehearses and rehearses and tires you out, and nothing moves. What Shantideva is pointing at in the first half of his line is very simple. When a problem is fixable, the mind's job is to help you find the fix and then send you off to do the fixing. The moment the fix has been identified, the worry has no job left. If you still feel it, it is running on old fuel from a time before you knew what to do. So one question worth asking the next time the thought comes around is this: is there anything I could actually do tomorrow or this week that would move this problem forward? If the answer is yes, then the worry has been pretending to be useful. Write it down. Write down the one small action on a piece of paper or in a note on your phone, and then put the paper where you will see it later. That one action is the thing the worry was trying to do without actually doing it. Once the action is on the paper, the worry can stop. It has done its job. There is a particular relief that comes with this small move. Something in the chest loosens when the problem stops being an endlessly rehearsed thought and becomes a written note that your future self will read. The mind, which had been doing the work of two people, can finally exhale. Now the harder half of the line. Most of the things we cannot set down, honestly, are of the other kind. The fixable kind are, in a way, the easier kind. You identify the action, you take it, you move on. The ones that keep returning longest are the other kind. The things that cannot be fixed because they have already happened. A word that was said that cannot be unsaid. A person who is gone. A decision made years ago that became the shape of your life. An illness that is going to do what it is going to do. A love that is not coming back. The old friend who no longer answers. The parent who died before you could say the thing you most needed to say. The version of yourself you were at 22, who you cannot go back and protect. You cannot write a note for your future self about these. There is no action that will touch them. There is no single thing that could be done this week that would undo what has been done. And still, the mind runs the loop. Why? This is the question Shantideva is asking, with the second half of his line. If nothing can be done, what is worry actually doing here? What job has it taken on? Stay close to the question. Do not answer it quickly. Here is what Shantideva was pointing at, I think, and what centuries of tired people have heard in his line. When the problem cannot be fixed, worry is often a kind of refusal, a way of staying in close contact with the wound, in case staying close to it can somehow undo it. A way of saying, I am still here, working on this. I have not given up. The loop is trying, in its exhausted way, to keep the unacceptable thing from being accepted. Underneath the worry, when you listen carefully, there is always grief. A grief the mind does not want to feel directly, because if the grief is felt, something becomes final. So it stays in the loop, in the half space between feeling and action, where nothing can be resolved, and also, crucially, nothing has to be finally accepted. The mind rearranges the past. It imagines other timelines. It rehearses arguments nobody is having. It is, in its own way, loving the thing it lost by refusing to let go of the thought of it. And yet, the thing is already what it is. The person is already gone. The word has already been said. The illness is already here. The mind's loop has not changed any of this for 1 second. The invitation in the second half of Shantideva's line is to let the worry finally rest. This invitation is not about dismissing the pain and not about needing to be above it. The worry can rest because there is no job left for it to do. The only thing that remains, when the loop stops, is to let the grief move through the body, in its own time, in its own wave. Let us try something small together. Bring to mind one thing you have been worrying about lately. Something that has been looping for the last few days or weeks. Something that returns at unexpected moments in the day. Hold it gently in your attention for a breath. Now ask yourself Shantideva's first question. Is there anything I could do about this, even a small thing, in the next week? A conversation, a phone call, a message, a decision. Feel the answer rather than thinking it. If a small action comes to mind, take note of it. You can write it down later. The worry, for now, can loosen its grip on this particular thing. It has been identified, and it can wait until later to be addressed. If no action comes, if the thing is already done, already lost, already beyond your reach, ask the second question. What is worry trying to do here? Feel the answer. Often, what you will find underneath is something like love. The worry is an old love that did not know how else to stay in contact with what it lost. Tell that part of yourself that you have heard it, that you know it has been trying to help, that the grief can arrive now, in its own way, and the loop can rest. Thank it for how long it has been at work. Thank it for refusing to let you be casual about what you love. Let it know, in the way you might let any tired worker know, that the shift it has been doing is finally over. Notice what this does in the body. Something often exhales, somewhere deep in the chest. A muscle lets go that had been holding for longer than you realized. The shoulders drop, the jaw eases, the breath, which had been shallow for this whole passage, reaches a little further down into the ribs. Your hand, which has been half clenched through most of this sitting, rests a little more openly on your leg. Something in you has understood that the worry was a worker without a job, and the worker is finally allowed to go home. The Shantideva line is very specific. It asks whether the emotional state of worry is doing any actual work in this moment, with this problem. Your care for what you care about is a different question, and one the line leaves entirely untouched. When the answer is that worry has no job to do, and it is almost always the answer, the worry can be allowed to set itself down. Like a worker at the end of a very long shift, walking slowly home. Stay with this for a moment. Something in you has been told it can stop. Just for today, just for this hour, just for the next breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel what happens in your chest when the worry worker takes off its apron. A small, warm stillness. A spaciousness that was being occupied and now is not. This is what it feels like when a chronic tension finishes. A small, surprising quiet, like hearing the hum of a fridge you did not know had been on until the moment it stops. There is a specific kind of warmth that tends to arrive in the quiet the worry has left behind. The Buddha had a name for it. He called it mettā, a quiet, unhurried friendliness, first toward yourself and then widening out into the world. It is an ancient teaching, simple in its shape, slow in its unfolding, the kind of thing you might have heard whispered in a temple doorway or offered by a grandmother with her hand on your cheek. Rest here. Let me bring it to you. Start where you are. Somewhere in your chest, from all of the sitting we have done, there is a quieter place than there was 40 minutes ago. A softer patch, a slight loosening around the edges of whatever you came here carrying. This is where the practice we are about to do begins. Right in that softer place. There is a chant called the Karanaya Metta Sutta, which means, in plain translation, the chant of loving kindness. It is one of the oldest texts still in active use anywhere in Buddhism. Monks chant it in the morning. Grieving students are given it by their teachers. Mothers say it silently over sleeping children. It has been continuously spoken, in one form or another, for 2,500 years. The practice is small. That is part of its power. There are 4 short phrases you offer, silently, first to yourself, and then slowly outward, to someone you love, to someone you do not know, to someone who has been difficult for you, and finally, to everyone, everywhere. What the practice asks you to do, first, is something most of us have never been asked to do in this particular way. It asks you to send warmth to yourself. Before anyone else. Before the person you are grieving. Before the people you love most. Before anyone in the world. To yourself. Notice what happens in your chest when you hear that. For many of us, a small, quiet resistance comes up. It sounds like, other people first. I am fine. Save it for someone who needs it. That resistance is worth noticing. It tells you something true about how long you have been carrying what you have been carrying. A lot of us were taught, without anyone ever saying it directly, that sending kindness to ourselves was a kind of selfishness. That the warm feelings belonged to other people first. That our own chest was the last place to receive what our chest is best at generating. The old monks were clear that this gets the practice backwards. If you try to offer warmth to others from a chest that has been shut out of warmth, the warmth runs thin after a while. You become tired. You start to resent the people you are supposedly caring for. You burn out in the particular way that kind people burn out. The practice of mettā keeps the well from running dry. Your own chest is the source. When the source is warm, there is enough warmth to flow outward. When the source has been cold for a long time, the warmth arrives in the people around you only in thin, strained streams. So, your turn first. This is where the practice has to start, because the practice cannot work any other way. Place a hand, if you can, somewhere on your body. On your chest, over your heart, is where people have been putting it for centuries. On your belly, if that feels more welcoming, is also fine. The hand is a message to the body that says, you. If your eyes can close, let them. If you are walking or driving, keep them open and just let the words land. Now, in the quiet of your own mind, say the phrases toward yourself. Slowly, as if you mean them. Because, quietly, you do. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be at peace. May I live with ease. Let them sit. Do not chase them. Let them do what they do. In a lot of people, the first round brings something unexpected. A small ache in the throat. A heaviness in the chest that was not there a second ago. A tear that gets halfway up to the eye and then stops. This is normal. It is what happens when a part of you that has not been spoken to kindly for a long time hears itself spoken to. Stay with whatever arrives. Say the phrases again, if you like, or let them echo in you. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be at peace. May I live with ease. Now, bring to mind someone you love. Someone easy, a friend, a child, a parent who has been kind to you, a grandparent you remember being safe with. Someone who, when you think of them, something in you softens a little. See their face in your mind, the way their eyes crinkle when they smile, the particular shape of their hands, the sound of their voice when they say your name. Offer them the phrases. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you live with ease. Let them settle into the image of this person, the way a warm towel settles onto cold shoulders. Notice something you may have missed. When you offered these phrases to someone you love, the warmth that came up in you was for them, and there was a second movement underneath it. Something in your own chest warmed up at the same time. This is how mettā works. The warmth is generated inside you, and in the act of generating it, you are warmed too. A candle that lights other candles keeps its own flame. It simply joins a wider glow. Now let the circle widen. Think of someone neutral. A person you see at the bus stop or at the coffee shop whose name you do not even know. The person who bagged your groceries last week. The delivery driver who always seems tired. A stranger whose life is a whole world to them, a world you know nothing about. Offer them the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you live with ease. Notice how the warmth can be the same whether the person is familiar or unfamiliar. It is the same warmth, offered from the same place in your chest, regardless of whether the other person has earned it. This point is quietly revolutionary. Most of what we call love in daily life has conditions stitched into it. The other person has to be family, or close, or worthy in some way. Mettā works differently. It is warmth that your own chest makes, without asking permission from anyone about who is allowed to receive it. Now, if you feel ready, bring to mind someone you have found difficult. Choose someone in the middle range of difficult. A colleague who has been tricky, a family member who grates on you, someone you have been holding a small grudge against, the kind you carry without quite admitting. Save the hardest person in your life for another day. This is the harder direction. Feel that. Notice the clench that shows up in the jaw or the stomach when you think of them. Offer the phrases anyway, gently, with no expectation that you will suddenly feel tender. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you live with ease. You may find that the phrases land differently for this person. The words feel a little stiffer in your mouth. The warmth arrives more slowly. A small voice inside might argue about why they do not deserve it. All of this is fine. The practice is simply asking you to offer, from your own chest, the same basic wish every creature has. To be safe, to be well, to be at peace, to live with ease. Something subtle happens when you do this, even once, even clumsily. The change happens inside your own chest. The grip you were holding against this person, the tight, small fist you did not know you had been carrying, loosens by 1 degree. And that 1 degree, over time, is enough. In the same Buddhist tradition, there is a companion to loving kindness, a second quality that teachers always teach alongside it. It is called upekkha, which is usually translated as equanimity. Equanimity is not coldness. It is what allows the loving kindness to keep flowing, even when the world does not behave the way you wanted it to. If you have ever loved someone you could not save, you already know the texture of upekkha. It is the steadiness that lets you stay present without collapsing in the face of what you cannot fix. Mettā is the warmth. Upekkha is the ground the warmth can stand on. Together, they make the kindness that does not run out. Think of a nurse who has been doing the work for 30 years. She still cares. She still puts a hand on the shoulder of the frightened person in the bed. And she goes home at the end of the shift without carrying every person's suffering into her own sleep. That steadiness is upekkha at work, the ground underneath the warmth. The ancient practice ends with one more widening. After sending the phrases to yourself, to someone you love, to someone neutral, to someone difficult, the practice asks you to widen out one final time. To all beings everywhere. Everyone who is sick today, everyone who is sitting with something they cannot fix, everyone who is as tired as you are, everyone you will never meet, whose life is as full of small and large losses as yours. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be at peace. May all beings live with ease. Feel what this does, settling in you. For a moment, you are holding in your heart everything the Buddha was also holding when he first taught these phrases to a group of monks in a forest 2,500 years ago. The same phrases, the same widening, the same warmth. This is the oldest kindness there is. It has held people through much harder passages than yours. It has been whispered over deathbeds, sung at harvests, offered by mothers to frightened children. And just now, it has been offered silently to you by you. Let yourself feel, for a breath, how unusual this is. You have just joined a line of people going back 25 centuries, who, in a quiet moment, chose to send warmth outward into a world that does not always return it. Among them were people sitting with unbearable grief, people in war, people whose children had died, people whose lives had fallen apart in ways you might not survive. And each of them, in their own dark passage, found that the phrases held them up. Something in the chest is steadied by saying the phrases, even when everything around the chest is still shaking. Take a breath. Feel your hand, wherever you placed it, on your body. Feel its weight. Feel its warmth. Feel the small, steady pressure of one living creature tending to another living creature, both of whom are you. When the mettā phrases have done their slow work, something else becomes possible. the things you have been carrying begin to loosen their exclusive grip on your attention. You notice, almost with surprise, that there is still a world around you. A life that has not stopped while you were grieving. A day that is going to keep happening. Breathe into the warmth you have made. Let your hand stay where it is, on your chest or on your belly. The warmth will be there later when you need it. This practice is a muscle, and it gets stronger every time you use it. What follows the oldest kindness is the oldest freedom. A particular kind of release that the Buddha spent 40 years helping people recognize. It is a teaching worth hearing at the end of a long sitting like this one. Notice the one who is tired. You have been holding a lot for a long time. All of this sitting has been about that holding. The plan that was not a plan. The water that would not stop moving. The fist around the rice. The second arrow flying into old wounds. The loop the worry keeps running. The chest that opens when warmth is finally offered. And through every one of those sections, there has been someone doing the holding. You, or what you usually call you. Feel the weight of that one for a moment. The particular you who started listening to this. The one with the specific exhaustion, the specific shape of grief, the specific project of keeping your life together in the way you have been trying to keep it together. That one has been working very hard. Feel where in your body that working lives. It is usually in the shoulders, held up near the ears, or in the jaw, slightly clamped, or in the stomach, which has not fully exhaled in months. That tightness is the specific shape of being that particular you, the muscular signature of the one who has been holding everything together. There is something the Buddha said in one of his earliest recorded teachings that turns the attention of the listener toward that very you. He asked his students to look very carefully at the thing they were calling themselves, to see whether it was, in fact, as solid as they had always assumed. The teaching he gave them is called mettā, which is usually translated as not self. The translation is a little clumsy. What it really points at is this. The thing you have been calling I has the character of a process. A moving, shifting, flowing thing that has been changing its shape every second of your life. Which means the fixed, defensible self you have been working so hard to protect was never quite there in the first place. Let us test this very gently in your own experience. Think back to the you who existed on the morning of your 5th birthday. That body, that face, those opinions about the world, that particular way of holding excitement in the chest. Is that the you who is listening to this right now? Clearly, no. That body has been replaced, cell by cell, many times over. The opinions have shifted. The way your chest holds excitement has grown quieter. The 5-year-old is gone. in any literal sense. The little body is dust. The small voice is long since changed. Not a single cell of that child still exists inside you. And yet you would still say, when asked, that it was you on that birthday morning. Think of the you of 10 years ago. The relationships you were in, the job you thought mattered, the version of your future you were planning toward, the thoughts you thought every night as you fell asleep. Different hopes, different fears, a different shape of you altogether. If you somehow met that version of yourself in the street tomorrow, the two of you would have plenty to talk about. And you would be, in some real sense, two different people. You have thought thoughts they would not recognize. They believed things you no longer believe. Their life and yours have diverged, over the 10 years between you, into different branches of a shared stream. Try it with the you of 5 years ago, the you of 6 months ago, the you of last week. At every scale, small and large, the you are referring to has already moved on. The you who woke up this morning is a slightly older, slightly different you than the one sitting here now, listening. If there were a fixed, permanent self, somewhere, holding all of this together, you would be able to point to it. You would be able to say, here, this part of me, this is the unchanging core. Every part of you that you might point to is changing. The cells, the thoughts, the feelings, the memories themselves, which rewrite themselves a little every time you remember them. The roles you play, the voice in your head, all of it in motion. Even the sense of being a self is a feeling that arises and passes thousands of times a day. More like a flicker than a constant. Every version of I you meet in daily life has its own small weather. The I in the mirror in the morning is one of them. The I at work is another. The I with your oldest friend is another. The I alone in a crowd of strangers is another. They pass across the wider sky of your awareness, many times a day, each of them brief, each of them convincing while it is here, each of them gone before the next one arrives. Now notice what this does in your chest, if you let it land fully. The specific version of you who has been exhausted from all this holding, the one who has been trying so hard to keep everything together, the one who has been carrying the plans and the hopes and the grief, the one who has been defending a particular idea of how your life was supposed to look. That one was never, in the deepest sense, as solid as it felt. Which means the exhaustion of being that one, of holding together that particular version of you, can also start to soften. Some people, when they first hear this teaching, feel a small panic. If the self is not fixed, they ask, does that mean there is no me? Does that mean nothing matters? This is a fair worry. The Buddha was careful about it. He was not saying there is no you. He was not saying you do not exist. He was saying that the you who exists is a living, moving, flowing thing more like a river than a rock. Rivers do not need defending. They flow, and they are absolutely themselves as rivers. You have always been, in this sense, a river. All of the love, all of the work, all of the care you have put into your life is still real, still carries, still matters. None of that required a fixed self to be real. All of it was being done by a moving, living you the whole time. This, by the way, is the deepest kind of letting go the Buddha taught. Deeper than letting go of things. Deeper than letting go of people or plans or jobs. A release from the whole project of being a specific, fixed, defensible self who has to win, survive, and be vindicated. When you stop defending that self, a lot of the exhaustion that was never really yours to carry starts to drop away. The grief you have been carrying is still there. The loss is still a loss. The facts of your life are still the facts. And the particular tightness of the self, the jawed, clenched, held together version of you that has been trying to outwork reality, can finally unclench. You may have tasted this already, without knowing what to call it. The moment of losing yourself in music, where for 30 seconds there was no you listening, only listening happening. The moment of deep focus on something you loved doing, where time disappeared and so, for a while, did the commentator in your head. The moment, walking somewhere familiar at dusk, when the difference between you and the evening softened for a few breaths. These are ordinary glimpses of what the Buddha pointed at. The self you usually feel is a construction, and it loosens on its own, in small moments, throughout any life. What the teaching adds is the recognition of what is happening in those moments, and the invitation to let those moments be more frequent and a little less accidental. You do not have to become a monk to find them. They are already woven into your ordinary hours, a few of them every day, mostly unnoticed. The walk home when the grief of the morning has moved somewhere else. The laugh with a colleague where, for 3 seconds, nothing you usually worry about exists. The pause before sleep when the whole cast of characters in your head quietens down. Try this for a breath. Drop, just for a moment, the project of being a specific someone. Notice what is still here when you do. Breath is still here. The sound of the room is still here. A body sitting, or walking, or lying down, somewhere. A mind watching all of it. None of those need a fixed self to be happening. They are all happening anyway. The things you love are still there too. The people whose names make your chest warm, the work that feels meaningful, the small rituals of your life, the coffee in the morning, the walk after dinner, the favorite chair by the window. All of those continue, regardless of whether there is a fixed self holding them. For a breath, let the self be smaller than it usually feels, or wider, or more porous, Let it be part of the larger thing that is happening around you, instead of a hard, separate object in the middle of your chest. This is what the old teachers meant when they said that anatta brings a particular quiet. The self stops working so hard to hold its own edges. And in that stopping, something that was underneath it all along becomes clearer. A kind of spaciousness that does not belong to anyone in particular. A presence that has been the ground of every moment of your life, regardless of which version of you was occupying it. The 5-year-old on the birthday morning was sitting in it. The 10 years ago you was sitting in it. The you who is listening to this right now is sitting in it. The versions come and go. The spaciousness stays. This is the most tender letting go there is. The recognition that the self can be looser than you usually let it be. Kinder to itself, less fiercely itself, allowed, for minutes at a time, to forget the project of staying the same. And you, whatever that word finally means, are still here. Breathing, listening, reaching the end of this stretch of our sitting with a softer chest than you started with. Rest your hand wherever it has ended up. Feel the slight weight of it on your body. Feel the breath moving in the space underneath it. That breath is being done by a body that has been breathing itself since before you had a name and will keep going until it stops. When you walk away from this sitting, in a few minutes, you will carry with you a slightly lighter way of holding the self you already have. The coffee will still be waiting. The messages will still be in the queue. The people in your life will still have their edges. All of it continues. The last stretch of what we are doing together is about exactly that continuation. How the teachings you have received tonight show up in your actual life tomorrow. In the kitchen, in the car, in the middle of an ordinary day that will not know anything has changed. That is where any of this begins to mean something. Most of what you will do with these teachings happens somewhere else. Away from the cushion, away from a quiet room, away from any 30 minutes you might spend listening to a teacher. In the ordinary minutes of your actual week, where nothing dramatic is happening, and the practice has to be small enough to fit into the spaces between other things. The formal practice is the small part. The cushion, the breath at the start of the day, the 30 minutes with a teacher, the hour-long sitting. All of that, taken together, is maybe 5% of the practice. The 95% is between one moment of remembering and the next moment of remembering. Between one breath in the morning and the breath you take while you are driving home at the end of the day. The bulk of your actual life. That is where the teachings come to life, or quietly go back to sleep on the shelf. Let us look at how they come to life. Tomorrow morning, you will wake up, and for about 90 seconds before anything else happens, your mind will be quiet. Then the first thought will arrive. Usually it is not the gentle kind. The list of things to do, the problem that is still unsolved from last night, the conversation that needs to be had, the person you will have to see. This is the first place the practice happens. You notice the first thought arriving. You notice, underneath it, the little clench in the stomach, the one that is saying, "Here we go again." You do not need anything complicated here. Name it, silently, in whatever words feel right. Here is the first clench of the day. That small act of naming, which takes about one breath, is what the rest of the day will be made of. Getting out of bed, you notice your shoulders are already up near your ears, bracing for something. Let them drop by 1 degree. Just one. Just enough to remind the body that the day has not actually started yet, and whatever you are bracing for may or may not come. In the shower, your mind will be planning the day, rehearsing the meeting, writing the email ahead of time, running scenarios. For 15 seconds, let the planning stop. Feel the water on your shoulders. That is all. This is the anicca practice. The water is moving. Let your body feel it. At breakfast, between bites, put the phone down for a minute. Taste what you are eating. This is the mettā practice, quietly, in its most ordinary form. For 1 minute, there is no one trying to hold anything together. There is only eating. Then the day starts. A message arrives from someone who makes your shoulders rise. Between the arrival and your response, there is a half-second window. In that window, you can feel the second arrow starting to draw back, the story beginning to write itself, the familiar narrative about this person, about you, about what this message means. Your only job is to see it for 1 breath. That seeing, even once, is half the practice right there. The other half is what you do next, which can be anything, because once you have seen the arrow, you are no longer entirely at the mercy of it. Mid-morning, you notice your hand is a tight fist around something. A situation at work, a sentence in an email, a thought about your future, a particular fear. Let the fingers soften by 1 degree. Just one. Just a slight giving way at the base of the thumb. That is the anicca practice. That is the monkey trap practice. That is the whole business of letting go, happening in 3 seconds, in the middle of an ordinary morning, while you are still at your desk. And nobody around you will notice it happen. The conversation continues. The day continues. The small muscle in your chest that had been holding has just relaxed. And the rest of your day will be slightly different because of it. You will not remember to do this most of the time. That is fine. The practice is not about remembering all the time. It is about remembering once in a while. One good remembering, once a day, for a few years changes a life. At lunchtime, maybe you notice that the worry loop has started again. The same problem, the same rehearsal, the same tight band across the chest. Ask Shantideva's question. Is there something I can do about this, even small, in the next few hours? If yes, do it, or write it down to do later. If no, let the loop rest. You have done your part for now. In the middle of the afternoon, a colleague says something that lands wrong. Before you say anything back, try the mettā phrase, silently, toward them. May you be well. Just that. One phrase. Notice what it does to the edges of your response. The words soften the shape of the 30 seconds that follow. Driving home, someone cuts you off. The anger arrives before you can stop it. That is fine. The anger is the first arrow. The second arrow would be the long story you tell yourself about this person, about the world, about how tired you are of careless drivers. Let the first arrow land. Skip the second one. May they be safe. Silently, 3 seconds. Then back to driving. At home, in the kitchen, something happens that is small and easy to miss. You are standing at the counter, chopping vegetables or filling a pot with water. For 10 seconds, there is no story, no plan, no self, just the chopping, just the water, just the hand. This is anatta, arriving uninvited, in the ordinary middle of your kitchen. Notice it when it happens. That noticing is what trains the muscle. Over time, these moments become more frequent and a little less accidental. In conversation with someone you love, at dinner, there will be a moment when a small resentment wants to lead the next sentence. Pause for one breath before the sentence forms. Send mettā silently to the two of you at the same time. May we both be well. You may find that the sentence you were about to say rewrites itself on its way out. A softer version, a more honest version, a version that does not punish either of you for being tired at the end of the day. Before sleep, lying in bed, the day will come back to you. The mind will want to review everything that went wrong. The things you should have said, the email you should have sent, the person who did not message back. This is the worry hour. It has its own rhythm. Hand on chest. One mettā phrase to yourself. May I rest tonight. Whatever is unresolved will be there in the morning. For now, let the body have the sleep it has been waiting for. You may be wondering where the grand part of all this is. The incense, the robes, the mountain, the teacher watching you do it perfectly. Most Buddhist practice is quieter than that. It has the shape of your ordinary week. Moments at the kitchen counter, moments in traffic, moments just before sleep, moments of pausing before replying to a message. 1,000 small openings every week to soften 1 degree. Over a year of these small returns, something shifts. The fist that was tight most of the time is tight less of the time. The second arrow misses more often than it did. The loop ends a little sooner when it starts. The mettā phrases come up on their own, unsummoned, in traffic. The grip on the self relaxes for longer stretches. You start to laugh a little more easily. Ordinary food tastes more like itself. A walk in a park becomes its own whole thing. Small moments of warmth arrive on their own, without being sought. The background hum of exhaustion is quieter. You may not notice the change while it is happening. It is like the way children grow. You see them every day, and they seem the same, until one afternoon their feet are suddenly half an inch higher off the ground when you hug them, and a whole year has passed while nobody was watching. The body is your best ally in this. Earlier than the mind, the body always knows when you have drifted back into clenching. Tight jaw, raised shoulders, held breath, tight stomach, the particular little frown between the eyebrows. Each of those is a small bell, a reminder from your body that, in this moment, the practice is available. Over time, you learn to hear the bells faster. The shoulders rise, and you exhale before you finish drafting the angry email. The jaw tightens, and you let go of the grudge you were rehearsing. The stomach clenches, and you say one mettā phrase to whoever is in front of you. The body becomes the teacher. It knows everything the text cannot write down. It lives the teaching in the middle of your Tuesday, while the mind is still catching up. This is why the Buddhist traditions have always insisted that practice is embodied. Nothing you learn about letting go is useful until the fingers actually soften. Nothing you hear about mettā matters until the phrase arrives in your mouth, silently, towards someone you are about to snap at. The chest knows. The breath knows. The shoulders know. Let them do the learning while you live the life. This is what the Buddhist tradition has been offering for 2,500 years to tired people who had not been looking for enlightenment, only for a way to stop being quite so exhausted. The practice is 10,000 small letting goes across a life. Each one smaller than a breath. Each one a little bit of softening. Each one on its own seeming too small to matter. All of them together over months and years, changing the entire shape of how you move through your own life. There will be weeks when none of this lands. Weeks where you are too tired to remember any of it. Weeks where life seems to be hurling harder versions of everything at you faster than any practice could keep up with. That is also part of the path. The practice is resilient enough to wait for you. When you come back, even after months away, the teachings will still be here. They are never more than one breath away. Take a breath. Feel Each of these teachings settle back into your body, one by one. The conditions under everything, the water that is always moving, the cage in the hand, the second arrow, the worry with no job, the oldest kindness, the self that does not stay, and now the practice between the practice. Each of those is a doorway. Any one of them, landing once in the right afternoon of your life, is enough. One teaching, one moment of recognition, one breath where something softens and does not go back to being quite as tight as it was before. Breathe with that. The teaching is already in you. What you heard has settled into the body that heard it. The Pali words, the details of who said what, can fade. The felt memory in the body stays. Take a slow breath in. Let it out. Notice how your shoulders are sitting right now, a little lower than they usually sit. Your jaw a little softer. The breath finding its way a little further into the ribs. Something in you has received what these teachings offer. The work from here is gentle. The practice between the practice. The 1,000 small softenings, the hand that opens by 1 degree in traffic, the phrase that lands in your mouth before you say a sharper thing. All of that begins in the next ordinary hour of your life. You carry the teachings with you in the particular way your shoulders now know how to drop. In the small muscle at the base of the thumb that has learned what softening feels like. In the breath that has already remembered how to go deeper. The teaching walks with you from here. Into the kitchen, into the car, into the ordinary afternoons where the fist will want to tighten again, and something in you now knows how to open it. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you live with ease. Whatever brought you to this place is welcome here. And may whatever you take with you be a little lighter than what you came in carrying. May it be so.